This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and it's big toy time. This is the Alienware 17 R4. That's right, fourth generation. It's hard to keep track. I know some of you even sometimes argue about which generation it is. The 15 that we just did last month, that was the R3 because they haven't been making the 15s as long as the 17s. So here you have it. There's also a 13-inch. Maybe someday we'll get to review that one too. Anyway, this is the biggest of the flagships right now. 17 inches, 10 pounds. I mean, oh my, yeah, I don't have to go to the gym anymore. Oh my God. But for that, you get really solid construction, metal build quality, a lot of good stuff inside. We're going to look at it now. So the Alienware, well, that's synonymous with gaming and kind of high-end gaming at that, isn't it? Happily, the prices have been coming down over the years. That's the advantage of having a big company like Dell own them and get a good deal basically on all the components that they use because they buy them in such large quantities. It starts at $1,500 and it goes up from there. That $1,500 would get you a quad-core i7-6700 HQ, the usual 2.6 gigahertz that we see in all the quad-core 45-watt laptops. That's Intel Skylake 6th generation. That's the latest, greatest currently available. It'll get you 8 gigs of DDR4, 2400 megahertz RAM, the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060 card. That's the 10 series Pascal card. 1 terabyte, 7200 RPM hard drive, and a 1920 by 1080 IPS 300 nit display matte, which is what we have right here, that display. Now ours is a little bit nicer, it's more desirable. It says that it has that same Core i7 CPU inside, but we've got 16 gigs of RAM, the GTX 1070 card for more future-proofing and more oomph in your games, and a boot 128 gig SSD. Now it's got several PCIe SSD slots inside, but if you buy the base model, the cheapest, 128 gig one, has just a SATA 3 SSD inside, but you can put a PCIe one in there, in fact. You can put whatever one you want in there. That's one of the nice things about this. It has several bays. We'll show you the internals soon. And of course, you can even replace that 1 terabyte spinning hard drive with your usual 2.5-inch Samsung Evo 850 SSD, that sort of thing. Those are getting pretty affordable these days if you want your game launch times to be better. So one configured like ours is typically around $1,650 on sale at places like Best Buy or Micro Center. This time of year they are having plenty of sales, and it's about $1,800 otherwise. Now there's a couple of different display options, and we'll get into that when we talk about displays, and those can of course raise the price too. Just about everything except for the size, they're going to be an awful lot like the Alienware 15 R3 that we reviewed last month. The same overall design, the same materials, most of the same features. You gain a port on the bigger one. Obviously, you get a bigger screen. So deciding between the two of these is really a matter of how much weight and how much screen size you want. A lot of people like the 17-inch as a traditional big screen gaming laptop. You can actually use that panel and enjoy games with a display that big. That said, it's 10 pounds. Now, the 15-inch is still incredibly heavy at 7.7 pounds, so once you're going heavy, depends how heavy you want to go there. It's really quite slim, I'll say that at least, but heavy it is. Tobii eye tracking is standard and has a Windows Hello IR camera. This is a little bit more full-featured than the Tobii eye tracking we saw on the 15-inch model, but it's not a feature that I find particularly useful, honestly. Having it try to see where your eyes are when you're in a game, and it's just not everything one might have hoped. Killer Wi-Fi is standard with Bluetooth 4.1. You can get either the 1435 or the 1535 AC card. I like Killer. Good throughput, really good performance, generally speaking. And update your drivers right away because Killer's had some drivers out there that are a little bit iffy, but the latest ones are working well. The Alienware 17 R4 is actually really good looking as gaming laptops go. And I said the same thing about the 15-inch version that we just reviewed last month. It's kind of stately and classy and futuristic looking. It doesn't have all the red and the orange bling. So that means, you know, you could probably like take it to work and people won't go, laugh at you a little bit like, yeah, boy gamer carrying your laptop or girl gamer. It's also, you know, I wouldn't call it beautiful, but it's one of the better looking gaming laptops, and it's really well made. You've got aluminum chassis, you've got some plastic panels on top, but overall, the minute you look at it, it says quality. You know, you won't say I have the most pretty laptop, it's not a MacBook Pro or something like that, but you're going to look at it and say I have something that's really well made and well thought out in terms of design and look. The angles are interesting, the display forward hinge over here so you can have some amplified cooling area on the back. It's a clever way of doing it, and even when you open it up, that extends inside. Nice stiff lid hinge. Bezel's not too big. Considering it's a gaming laptop, you get your contrasting shiny stuff. Nice soft touch firm deck. One of the best keyboards on the market. I know some of you only like those chiclet style keyboards that are in fashion right now, but trust me, try using it first. It's not too long travel. It's not an old-fashioned keyboard in that way, but perfect damping, perfect response, just the right amount of travel. And of course, it has the zone backlighting, which we'll get into. And Alienware is full of those little touches because they've been doing this for so long. One of the things I like about the keyboard is you can set the FN row to be FN keys or multimedia keys. Just go into BIOS and change the settings. So this is something I wish ASUS would learn, because you always have to use the FN key to use multimedia functions, which many of us use more often than we ever use F2, F3, whatever. So on the back, Ethernet. We got gigabit Ethernet here. We have DisplayPort. We have HDMI 2.0, Thunderbolt 3 / USB-C Gen 2, so forward-looking port right there, and that big slotty port right over there. That's the Alienware graphics amplifier connector. That's one of the neat things about Alienware also is, you know, the GPU is the thing that ages most quickly, goes out of date most quickly in a gaming laptop, and it's expensive to buy a new one. So the Alienware graphics amplifier is this big black box about the size of a shoebox or so that houses a full-size desktop graphics card, and typically that amplifier is going for about $159, a lot less money than the $500 Razer Core. So when the GPU finally becomes out of date in this thing, you buy yourself a desktop graphics card, you put it in the graphics amplifier, plug it in, and when you don't need to game on the go, at least you've got phenomenal amount of power all over again. So it's a very useful port, even if it is proprietary and just Alienware. Now for traditional USB 3.0 type A ports, we have one on each side. On the other side, the only port is that USB 3.0 port. There's one on this side as well. So right-handed, left-handed, you can plug your mouse in wherever you want and not be annoyed. You've got your audio jacks there, separate headphone and mic jacks. So if you're using one of those high-end headsets that splits, you can actually use that, which is pretty darn handy. And last but not least, how neat is this? We've got yet another USB-C port here on the side. So it wouldn't be an Alienware or a gaming laptop without customizable colors, though sometimes, you know, like some of the lower end ASUS Rogues, they give you just one color, red. But in this case, you're getting the full Monty. Now, you're not going to get individual customization for each key on the keyboard like you do with the Razer Blade, with their Chroma keyboard. You get zone backlighting, and you can see right here on the screen, you can select each one of these and then select the color wheel to put a color. So the macro keys on the left, you can set a color for. You've got your 4 other zones. Of course, the number pad on the far right, most of us would want to have that to be a different color. You can assign a color to the trackpad. There are LEDs on the side. It looks really actually pretty cool on the side of the laptop, and you can set those to be whatever you want. You can have them do some color effects, in fact, as well. And even the Alienware logo right there below the display, you can colorize that too. And we've got a couple of other things going on here too. This is really just quick access to a lot of system settings for people who don't feel like digging in and finding them for themselves. TactX is really programmable macro keys. Well, that's always good to have on a gaming laptop. And Adrenaline is customized settings for a particular game or whatever game that you want as well. And of course, you get the usual Alienware update software and Dell Assist software for maintaining the laptop and keeping up to date on drivers. Well, performance on this is, as you would expect, very strong. It's a powerful gaming laptop. And again, we have the 6700 HQ, the standard CPU, not the overclockable one. You could go to town with that if you want and eke out a little bit more performance. Me, I'd rather not deal with the hassles of heat and all that sort of thing. So, but that's up to you. That's why we have choices. So the scores are excellent and what we would expect for a machine with the GTX 1070, a very strong graphics card that can handle at least 60 frames per second gaming in any and every title currently on the market, even The Witcher 3, and that's on high on The Witcher 3. Witcher 3 is a pig. Ultra for Fallout 4, and you'll see some of the footage that we've got interspersed throughout this video. It's all good stuff. And older games like Battlefield 4, I mean, you're going to do at least 120 frames per second on that. So it's future-proof even, and it's certainly more than enough for today. And if you got the GTX 1080 card, which is an option that seems to mysteriously come and go on Dell's website right now, then you really should even be able to do 4K gaming, which, you know, on the internal panel, it's really so small, it's hard to appreciate that. But if you plug it into an external display via the HDMI or DisplayPort connections, then yeah. And there's our score for the Extreme. You get the idea. CloudGate, looking good. The SSD scores there for the factory, 128 gig, and that was a SATA 3 interface drive, which are fine for that kind of drive. That's what happens if you put this Samsung 960 Evo drive in there that I put in. Wow, look at those numbers. That's pretty nice. So yeah, that's a worthwhile endeavor right there. So in general, top-notch performance on this. This is one well-ventilated machine. I mean, look at this. This is all ventilation here, all grill. Fan here for your CPU, your GPU, lots of heat pipes. I'll show you the inside in a minute. So yeah, that's a good thing, and it really does work efficiently. It'll be interesting to see how much lint, how many dust bunnies it gathers through all of these openings here, if it's designed pretty well to avoid that sort of thing happening. But it's easy enough to take this off and give it a vacuum if you need to. So we also have a vent on each side. This is really an air intake though, so it's not going to be blowing on your hands whether you're right or left-handed and using that mousey. We got the little subwoofer grill in this corner over here. Reasonably effective, pretty good sound for a 17-inch laptop. I mean, it's not going to replace your stereo system, but it makes for an immersive gaming experience. I was pretty pleased with it. And the subwoofer is a nice addition over the Alienware 15. And of course, we have the hinge design that's interesting, the display forward design. So the display hinges up here to give you, or give them, really more room to design cooling and hang out some heat sinks over here, and this is where the heat exhausts from. Now, this laptop has really impressed me. And let me get into details about BIOSes first. Typically when Alienwares come out, there's a flurry of new BIOS releases where they fix all the little problems and all that sort of thing. So when we first got this, it was fairly quiet and the performance was decent. Then we got the 1.06 BIOS where it got kind of loud and noisy and sounded like a vacuum cleaner, which was pretty odd, even though the CPU and GPU temperatures were pretty good on it. Now we're at 1.08. I know some of you have this and are not thrilled with it, who have the overclocked CPU, but it has been great here. It's a nice balance between not too much noise, even when pushing it very heavily, like really modded Fallout 4, that sort of thing, and keeping the CPU and GPU almost at desktop levels of cool. Typically, gaming, and I mean like a 2-hour session in Fallout 4 with mods, the CPU cores are low 50s. And the variance between the cores is up to 8 centigrade. I know some of you worry about that and think you need to repaste. You know, it's going to happen even if you repaste a lot of them. That's fine. That's good. And the GPU typically is in the low 50s too. It's just really impressive. Sometimes it hits the mid 50s. I did manage to hit 58. You see, we'll have some Unigine Heaven footage running, and you'll notice that it's the first time I've ever seen Unigine Heaven running on a laptop where, and I had it running for like a half an hour, where the GPU never went above about 61 Celsius and it averaged 59 during a benchmark. That's really cool. So this is effective. Yeah, if you're pushing it really hard, you will hear the fan some, not like a teeny, super thin gaming laptop like a Razer Blade or something, but wow, they did a good job. Okay, so we're going to open it up now and you're going to see a little tidy wonderland inside. Just Phillips head screws like these and the very obvious holes. Hold it on, and the last one is a little captive screw, so you do that one last, and then you just kind of yank. It's going to take a little bit of an effort, but not a whole lot. Beware, don't try to yank the LED piping on the side off too. That does not come off with the cover, so stay above the little LED stuff right here. So here we have inside our nice big fans, our heat sink over the CPU and GPU. Here's your 2 RAM slots. Some gaming laptops have 4. This one has 2. So max would be 32 gigs if you put 16 gig SO-DIMM in each slot. There is our hard drive bay. There's one 2.5-inch drive bay. I've already put a Samsung Evo 850 in this one, and it's easy peasy. You just undo the screws, pop it out. It's all very serviceable. It's all marked right here, so that's pretty nice. In fact, the connector for the lighting, they have Tron lighting connector labeled. It's pretty cute. I've upgraded the boot SSD. It was a Hynix 128 gig SATA SSD with a 960 EVO SSD right here. So you got that one, which happens to be bay 3. Again, they're all marked right there, and you've got more bays available to you. Here is another full-size 2280 height SSD bay right there. And then there's another half-height one too, marked as SSD 1. So plenty of room to grow in here. Now, the only bad news here is that if you want to get to all the internals, say you want to, you actually could clean the fans pretty easily. You could blow compress in there, air in there, or use a vacuum cleaner. But if you want to completely tear this down, then you have to take off this inner subframe, which is what gives it that nice rigidity and helps keep people who don't know so much about laptops away from the other stuff that they shouldn't be touching. You get your drive bays and your RAM available for access easily here. So you're going to have to take off all the other screws and take this plate off if you want to go full in there and repaste your heatsink and all that sort of thing. But hey, if you're that enthusiastic and you want to do that, you're probably just cool with undoing some more screws and plastic. So, me personally, I was pretty torn. If I was going to be buying this, what would I want to get? The 1920 by 1080 IPS 300 nit display, which is the unit we have here, or that step up, which is a QHD display that has G-Sync. This is a 60 hertz non-G-Sync panel. The QHD one, 2560 by 1440, does have G-Sync, but it's a TN panel. It's also matte, it's also non-touch. So far, all the displays are non-touch for this generation. But TN, not such great viewing angles. It looks kind of weird when you tilt the display forward and back, and the contrast is not so good. Well, having seen it in person, I can tell you that the viewing angles are remarkable for a TN panel. This has got to be the best TN panel I've seen in a long time on a laptop. Now, MSI has been doing a few good TN panels too, so Alienware is not alone with that. But so viewing angles didn't bother me. If you tip the display, far forward, then you're going to see some shift. But nobody usually uses their laptop with a display tipped that way. However, contrast is lower. And since I care about photo editing and video editing, and I know some of you are pro app buyers more than you're even gamers who buy an Alienware, the contrast really is noticeably better. Now, there is also a 4K UHD display option. Oh, that's pretty sweet too. And that's a Sharp IGZO panel. That one has wider color gamut. It's a beautiful looking display, and that adds some money on it. It's about $125 to $150 to move up to the TN 120 hertz panel, and it's going to be about another $100 or so, or it's about $250 from the base model to go up to that 4K display or so. If you're a photo or video pro, it's probably worth it to do that. If you're a gamer, not so much, because even with this thing like the GTX 1070, 4K gaming really is not that much of a reality. The frame rates aren't that great. Whereas 2K gaming, that's the 1440 display, yeah, that one can work. So in terms of quality for the 1920 by 1080 IPS display we have, this is a panel made by LG, and it's quite good. And the metrics are pretty similar to the 15-inch. Honestly, we got 95% of sRGB, 72% of Adobe RG. So for those of you who are making content for the web, that's perfectly adequate. All you need is that sRGB coverage. 6900 degrees Kelvin, that's a rarity these days to get that close to ideal, which would be 6600. It's actually much better than the 15, which was at 7400, way too high. So that means that your display doesn't skew way towards the blue, in other words. It looks pretty good, and it's pretty easy to calibrate it to, well, perfect. Gamma's 2.0, it's a little bit low. And brightness measured 332 nits, exceeding Alienware or Dell's claims. Black level 0.51, it's okay. 660 to 1 contrast ratio. All in all, a very pleasing panel. Certainly lovely for gaming and good enough for content creation. Unless you're working for print where you need full Adobe RGB, then consider the higher resolution, higher gamut 4K display. So yes, the Alienware 17 is a big gaming laptop, but you know what? It is a lot slimmer than much of the competition on the market that's still doing a fairly thick design. This is the MSI GT72 Dominator, a direct competitor. You can get the same internals, same screen size, all that sort of thing. A lot of the same bells and whistles, but boy, is it a lot thicker. Of course, the Alienware weighs more than just about everything else on the block, even though it looks thinner. Also, notice, MSI makes a more understated gaming laptop as they go, other than their dragon logo on the lid. They still have some red accents and stuff like that, so it's pretty low-key, but the Alienware really looks, well, almost like, business chic mixed with gamer in a way, doesn't it? Without all the red and flare and all that sort of thing. And now we have the Acer Predator 17X. I love these violent names, don't you, that we got here. We have a 17-inch laptop that's pretty thick. And now this is one I actually like aesthetically speaking. You've got the nice rubbery finish. It looks like a pretty quality piece, but it's pretty out there in the design. We have red flourishes just about everywhere. This is one you might think twice about taking to work, especially when you see the rear view of this, which is not unlike the Asus ROG G752. Very aggressive, very colorful looking. But anyway, obviously a thicker laptop. So again, Dell's done a good job finally of slimming down the design with this generation without creating laptops that either run too hot or sound like vacuum cleaners. Optimus, let's talk about that for a minute. That means potentially better battery life when you're unplugged and you don't need the dedicated graphics. Not when you're gaming, folks, but when you're using this for Word, Excel, streaming video, not plugged into AC. That allows you to switch to Intel integrated HD 530 graphics and get better battery life. So for a gaming laptop, this one can be pretty good. For, light productivity tasks, you can manage 6 hours with this. Batteries, there's two sizes, just like with the Alienware 15. I wouldn't be surprised if they're the same part, honestly. You can get either the 68 watt-hour battery that's available if you get the GTX 1060 card, or otherwise, Alienware is going to make you get that 99 watt-hour battery, which is the biggest battery legally they can put inside a laptop. So we have that one because we have the 1070 card inside, so our battery life's based on that. I would say that if you're just running on dedicated graphics only, and there's a hardware switch on the keyboard, I love Alienware for giving us that. If you just want to make sure it's always running on dedicated graphics, we can simulate that, and then you're looking for productivity work about 3 hours, 3.5 hours or so. So there you have it, with all of its LED-ridden glory, the Alienware 17. It's a true desktop replacement in terms of the fact, not the specs alone, because you can get all sorts of laptops with these specs these days, but it's engineered to actually run fairly cool and quiet most of the time. I'm really impressed with the CPU and GPU temperatures. Now, for those of you who go for something like the overclockable CPU or the GTX 1080, it's probably going to be a little hotter, a little bit louder, but it's really built to handle that. So premium construction, all sorts of ports, a lot of display options, and the starting price is no longer a terrifying thing the way it used to be with Alienware. So it's really the one to want. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you liked it.